Hello and welcome. I'm Bio, and today I'm doing another game review, rant video, whatever the hell you want to refer to these videos as. And the game I am looking at today, finally, is a Simple Series game. You would have thought it would take me this long to get to a Simple Series game, or more specifically a Simple 2000 series game, but here we are, looking at a Simple 2000 series game. I'm basically going in alphabetical order of like PlayStation 2 games at this rate. That's why the very first Simple 2000 series game I'm looking at is Buccaneer. Now, Buccaneer is an interesting game, but at the same time it isn't an interesting game. There's interesting facts about it, but when you get to the real meat and bones of the game, it is very much so a budget game. So it's understandable it was released under the Simple 2000 series. Buccaneer is known as the Simple 2000 series Volume 96, the Kaizoku Gaikotsu Ippaire in Japan, which I don't know how that translates to, but I know Kaizoku's pirate, so it's basically the pirate. So, yeah. It's developed by Digitalware, and in the West, exclusively in Europe, I believe, it was published by Essential Games. In Japan, obviously, it's published by D3 Publisher. They're the ones behind the Simple series, anyway. And it came out in Europe in September 28th, 2007, so it's a very late release PlayStation 2 game. But then if you compare it to the Japanese release, in Japan it came out in April 2006. So even in Japan it was also a late release PlayStation 2 game. So I played through this entire game and it was a struggle. There's a reason why I use the term black spot. If you're not familiar with pirate lingo, it means a death threat. So playing Buccaneer for PlayStation 2 is like getting a death threat. Which is nice, isn't it? It's a nice way to put it. I thought I'd put it there nicely. What I mean by that is, Buccaneer is a hard game, but for the wrong reasons. What I'm going to tell you about Buccaneer may surprise you, because I realize that there's like literally nothing of the game on YouTube. There's a few gameplay things here and there, and there's like one review. That's it. So I'm the second guy to review Buccaneer for the PlayStation 2, which is interesting. But I understand why. It's a very difficult game, and it's difficult because realistically it's clunky. It's a clunky video game at its heart and at its core. But it has a lot of good ideas, and it tries to do things which I haven't really seen many. Technically, it's a hack and slash game, so I haven't seen many hack and slash games do. So let's just dive into the beginning of it. In the background, you'll hear just the one track from Buccaneer playing over the background of the video. The music in Buccaneer is actually not that bad, and I never got bored of this track. This track is my favorite track in the game, and it literally screams adventure. Like, you're on the high seas, you're going for adventure. It ticks all those boxes, in my opinion. And generally speaking, the soundtrack's not that bad. It's a shame it's not on YouTube, and I'll do my best to see if I can. I know I can't extract the soundtrack from the game because I've already looked, but at least I can do is maybe just record as many tracks as I can from hearing it playing it in the game, because I have plenty of save states in different parts of the game, and try and put it on YouTube. So let's first dive into the story of the game. Now, generally speaking, I wouldn't spoil the story of the game. I'm going to give you a very brief synopsis because the story is pretty much non-existent in this game. I have an idea of a different style of video I want to do that I'm going to experiment with in the future, but I'll leave that as it is for now until I get around to doing that video. But basically, the story is you play as John Buccaneer. He doesn't have a name. Call him whatever you like. I call him John Buccaneer. I wanted to call him the dude from Pirates of the Caribbean because he kind of looks like him, not Jack Sparrow. I'm going to forget his name. I had it written down, but I've lost it. Pirates of the Caribbean. Let me just look up the the name of the character I'm thinking of. Will Turner, that's the one. He looks very much like Will Turner from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's shocking how much the main character you play as looks like that. Well, the only character you play as looks like that. And the story is that you set sail for the high seas. You want to get treasure and get rich. And as you're sailing the high seas, you come across these, I don't know, basically bad, evil spirits, I guess. You come across skeletons, zombies, or the undead, whatever you want to refer to them as, and you come across ghosts or ghouls, whatever you want to refer to them as again. So you basically battle these spirits. I'm just going to use spirits as the loose term, right, for all three, to apply to all three of them. You go to different like ghost ships. You battle these spirits while defeating basically these spirits. You go and collect treasure. Which in turn then, once you collect all the treasure, you fight the boss of the ship, and then you move on to the next ship. And that's basically the gameplay loop of the game. It is a very small gameplay loop. That's the simplified version. The in-depth version is you get on the ship, it will tell you to defeat a certain enemy, and it's normally an enemy that's colored red for the skeletons, I think it's green for the zombies, and it's blue for the ghosts. You got to defeat one of them. You'll have little like minion enemies, whatever, little smaller enemies around that are going to be around that tougher enemy, as you could say, or you could, I wouldn't say mini boss, but tougher enemy. Once you defeat that tougher enemy, it will tell you to go and basically go to this treasure chest. You go get the treasure chest, then it'll go and tell you to do the same again. Normally you do this like 3 or 4 times, and then it'll eventually, there's a little needle at the top of the screen that shows you where you need to go. It will tell you to go to where the needle's pointing, which will lead to a boss, in which way you just fight the boss. Now, starting off, you fight the boss on its own. Bosses are not too difficult in the game. Generally speaking, you can dodge. Yes, there is a dodge mechanic in this game, and I'm going to go over the controls in a minute. And you can dodge your way around the boss and defeat it. But when you're fighting against the boss and he's got a lot of the smaller enemies around him, or the boss literally spawns smaller enemies, which is really, really annoying. And I'm not talking like spawns them around him, I mean on top of him. The boss will spawn smaller enemies on top of him. It gets quite frustrating, because you got to kind of watch out for the little enemies while also watching out for the boss enemies' attacks. And there's one factor of the game I don't enjoy, is the smaller enemies, if they're too far away from you, they fire these like projectiles at you that do substantial damage, and quite often these projectiles will hit you off screen. So you'll be fighting, I guess, the tougher enemy, the red enemy or the blue or the green, and one of the smaller little minions will throw a little bomb at you, or well, not a bomb, but a little red orb at you, and it will hit you, and you're like, I couldn't react to that because it was off screen. And that's probably the most annoying part of the combat, if I'm honest with you, is dealing with the projectiles and trying to get out of their way. Additionally speaking, fighting enemies on the pirate ships, no problem whatsoever. Fighting enemies at the pirate cave base, which is another factor of the game, not so fun, especially because you have these like small little corridors here and there to go between the big areas, and yeah, trying to get past the enemies is not great. You know, jumping over them is not easy, and the enemies will get some free hits on you, especially if you don't need to fight those enemies, because again, you literally don't need to fight them. The main thing is to fight the tougher enemies, the red, green, and blue enemies. But generally speaking, yeah, you fight 2 or 3 like red pirate ships on this map, because there's like this little map screen where you can go around and look for pirate ghost ships. The red ones progress the story, the blue ones are side quests. You can go and do the blue ones that will increase your score. Not that the score means anything. You know, this isn't bloody 1990. This isn't, you know, 1985. We aren't playing games on the Atari 2600 where the bloody score means anything. But a score apparently means something in this game. I don't know what it means, because it doesn't have a purpose, but I guess it has a purpose. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Number go up, basically. And so yeah, you can go and do side quests like collect treasure, defeat enemies in X amount of time, do this amount of hits in one go, generally speaking. And you'll get like a rating at the bottom. The ratings don't really mean anything. sometimes I think I would have done badly in a say call a mission, and I'd get like an S or an A, and then in other times I thought I did okay and I'd get a D. So the rankings really meant nothing to me. So after you, let's say, beat these 3 red pirate ships, 4 red pirate ships, whatever they may be, you'll have to search around the map, mainly look for a landmass on the map, and there should be a little like pirate flag on it, and that's basically like a pirate cave base. You go in the pirate cave base, you got to do the exact same thing again. Defeat tougher enemies, get the treasure chests, and eventually the needle will dictate to you to go to an area where you fight the boss. And you got to do this 3 times. Basically, 3 times. It might be 4, I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 times you have to do this. 3 times you have to go and take down 3 or 4 red pirate ships, go to the cave base 3 times, and you do it in that order. Until eventually, once you do it the 3rd time, you will lead to this like lake, where you fight more enemies and do rinse and repeat again. Then it will take you to this pirate ship on the lake, which again you have to do the same again. Fight tougher enemies, get treasure chests, beat the boss, whatever, right? Bit annoying because you have to go between, there's multiple pirate ships and you have to go between them, and enemies, for some reason the developers thought it was a great idea to spawn enemies on the little beams in between the pirate ships, meaning that you're kind of like, get out of my way, I just want to get past you, you're a little smaller enemy, I don't need to fight you, I want to fight the tougher enemies so I can progress. But interesting spawn locations sometimes. And after that, you have to do like a boss rush of the 3 like boss enemies. And like I said, the boss enemies aren't too bad. In my opinion, the ghost boss enemy is the easiest one. His attack patterns are easy to kind of guess or you can see them coming. With the exception of one attack, which is quite difficult to dodge. The skeleton boss is not difficult at all, generally speaking. Yeah, okay, we've got some free hits here and there, but health is plentiful, realistically speaking. So, but the zombie boss is a pain in the ass. I don't like his attacks, and they're, in my opinion, a bit difficult to kind of determine when they're going to hit you, so you can dodge out of the way. Then there's the final boss, which is the only boss that is kind of unique in itself. You only fight it the one time. And in my opinion, he wasn't that difficult to beat either. So, and then after you beat that boss, you win the game. The dude goes back to his hometown. He's a millionaire now, and basically he's like, yeah, I got all this money, but I'm bored. I'm gonna buy a better ship and go back out on the sea again. And then the game starts from the beginning once again. So the game just loops basically indefinitely. So that's the general kind of like structure of how the game works. Now, health is these little blue vials that you can find within crates and barrels, and sometimes enemies drop them as well. You get the smaller ones, which do a little bit of health, and the bigger ones, which pretty much do your entire health. You can also find hearts in these crates and barrels, which increase your max health, and you can also find gems sometimes, which will swap out your current gem, because there's like 3 gems that you can also find in these treasure chests. One's red, one's green, and one's blue. Never really understood the difference between them. Basically, when you got the gem's fully powered, you can do like a special move where it kind of rotates the camera around the character, and he gets basically stronger attacks. So let's go over the controls, right? The square button is your main attack. The circle button does like a powered attack. The triangle button jumps, and the X button releases your, like, you know, I said about these gems you have, and you have this separate meter that basically goes up with when it reaches full. You can press the X button and it will activate where he goes into this like hyper mode, which his weapon glows red, blue, or green, and he can do more damage basically for a certain amount of time while that bar is active, and it'll slowly go down until it's nothing, and you have to recharge it again. You can recharge that meter by either taking enemy attacks or avoiding enemy attacks long enough and keep attacking the enemy for it to build up on its own. So you got 2 different ways that you can build it up. Dear. The other buttons you have, the start button obviously brings up the pause menu. There's a map on the pause menu that you can reference, but the map doesn't really serve a purpose because each of the maps are very small anyway, and it's not exactly difficult to navigate, to be honest. So as long as you're just trying to dodge enemies as you go around exploring, if you don't need to fight them. The R2 button locks on to enemies, and I've got a lot to say about the lock on, let me just say that. And then the R1 button shoots his gun. He has a gun. I don't really see the purpose of shooting the gun, really, if I'm honest with you. So I very rarely used it. And then the L2 and L1 buttons, holy moly. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to think, what do they do? And I just like, I don't remember, to be honest. I honestly don't remember. I literally just played the game to get some footage, and now I'm recording this video, and I'm just like, I just don't remember. Very clearly, I must have not used them very often. Let me put it that way. So, now in terms of dodging, that is dictated by the right analog stick, which is very interesting. So you don't control the camera in this game at all. And sometimes the camera does kind of fuck you over, but it doesn't do it too often. So to think that somehow this game actually has an okay camera for a budget game, and then I think of like when I was playing some of the other games, other hack and slash games, and their camera was horrendous. It's like, wow, okay, budget series game can somehow do a better camera. How does that work? So yeah, and then so yeah, there's the dodge thing. You can dodge right, left, or back. The only complaint I have with the dodge, really, it's really good, the dodge. I'm actually quite surprised. It's quite effective. If you dodge right at the right time, you just completely avoid the enemy's attack or damage in general. So even if the attack looks like it hit you, if you dodge at the right time, it won't do you, like, go invincible. I guess you get invincibility frames and you don't take any damage. But I really wish there was a forward dodge. The reason why I wish there was a forward dodge is sometimes if there's enemies spawning in front of you, if you had a forward dodge, you could just dodge out of the way and it would be quite helpful. Now, let's talk about the lock-on button. The lock-on button sometimes works, sometimes does whatever the fuck it likes. Unfortunately, if you get hit by the enemy and fall on your ass, the game will de-lock you from that enemy. So basically, it will take away the, even though you're holding down R2 the entire time, you will no longer be locked onto that enemy. So when you rise back up, quite often you're automatically holding down the R2 button, and you'll just end up looking somewhere completely different than you're supposed to be looking because, I don't know, your character stood up in a weird way, and it would just be annoying. Or you would stand up correctly and you'll start attacking the enemy, and your guy will just go past the enemy while he's attacking, doing a combo, because you ain't locked on anymore. But then also at times, the game will just de-lock you from that character randomly, for no reason whatsoever. The enemy didn't even hit you. It could be while you're dodging. If while you're dodging, the enemy somehow goes off your screen a little bit, it'll de-lock you from the enemy, which is just like, you would think the camera would follow your dodge, but no, it doesn't, for whatever reason. So yeah, so the lock-on button is probably the worst aspect of this game. It is very, very weird. So then there's the combos. Now this is what I really like about the game. The combos are really, really good. And it's a very interesting system. It's a time-based system. So basically, you press if you just mash the square button, you'll do like 3 attacks in one go, and then that's about it. If you mash the circle button, he'll only do the one power slash. If you press square, wait a second, then press square again, you'll see that his movements change, and you can actually do a combo with the square button that does more damage, does more hits. And you can also use this in conjunction with both the circle and triangle button, and it is really useful and really cool. So if you press square, but time it right, then press circle and then circle again, and you'll see he will do different combos. One where he'll slash, and then he slams his sword on the ground, causing all enemies around you to be sent flying. Really useful move. Use that a lot, especially in bosses where their boss was just spawning loads of enemies and they're just fucking irritating me. And then you got another one where he'll do a multiple slashes, jump backwards, shoot his pistol at the enemy. You've got another one where he'll jump up into the air and do a spin attack similar to how Link does it in Legend of Zelda. And you'll do one where he'll jump up in the air and slash down, and yeah, there's quite a few different combos. I don't know how many there are in total. I don't have the game's manual to hand. I don't own this game physically, so it's hard for me to say. But I would say that I probably found at least 6 combos, maybe 7. There's probably more, or maybe that might be just all there is. But there's enough combos to keep it interesting. And like I said, the timing-based system keeps the game interesting, because you've got to not only micromanage the fact that you've got to time your button presses correctly, you also got to dodge out of the enemy's attacks. And the dodge, sometimes you could be in the middle of a combo and press the dodge and your dude doesn't do anything because, I don't know, he's in a certain phase of the combo and he gets hit by the enemy, which is annoying. But it didn't happen that often, so it wasn't really that frustrating. Generally speaking, the game's not, in my opinion, particularly difficult once you get used to the dodging and the combos. Except in the later half when the enemies just become stronger and more annoying, and it's just bosses just keep spawning enemies again and again. They'll get some free hits on you, and I did die a couple of times during the boss rush, but generally speaking, if you run around the stage, the bosses generally speaking stay where they are. There's no timer except with the optional side quests. So you could just leave the boss where he is, run down, go and smash a few crates, find some health, and then go back. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. So the game's not particularly that difficult. But what else is there to say about Buccaneer? It's surprisingly a competent, simple series game. I quite liked it, if I'm honest with you. But I will say, if it went on longer than it did, I probably would have stopped playing, because it is the combat is nice and competent, but it does get boring. You know, I recently played Berserk, and I found the whole corridor system, walking corridor to corridor to corridor, fighting enemies, to be a bit redundant towards the end of the game. And I said if they took away a lot of the padding of that game, it would have improved the experience tenfold. This game, luckily, is just about right. Just about when I got to the point where I was like, I don't really want to play this anymore, I found that I was very close to the end of the game. At least I figured I was very close to the end of the game. So I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue playing, and I'm going to finish the game, because I have a very good feeling I'm close to the end. No way for me to find out if I was, because no one has recorded a full playthrough as far as I can tell on YouTube. I don't think so. If I had known this beforehand, I might have recorded my entire playthrough of me playing through the game. Then I could have uploaded it, but hindsight, ladies and gentlemen, hindsight. But yeah, I think this is a decent game. You know, I would personally say just try the game. That's it. Just try it. It's one of those try. Don't try to finish it. There's no story really there to be had. So there's no reason to experience the story. But it's a game that's worth playing at least once just to see what the combat is like. And that's all I really have to say about the game. That and the music's great. But I think I'm going to call it there for Buccaneer for the PlayStation 2. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've been Bio, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.